'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la, etc. etc. Welcome to this week's edition of the PinkUn.com Norwich City podcast, basking in another Norwich City win, 2-0 over Huddersfield this afternoon. I'm your host, Connor Southwell, joined by two men who wish it could be Christmas every day, Harvey and Paddy Davitt. Paddy, another good afternoon at Carrow Road. Norwich City, they're flying.
Yeah, what did you say? Playoffs nailed on as we walked away.
They're up.
You said they're up, did you?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, yeah, even more exalted in terms of the ambition trajectory from here. But, let's get it out there straight away. Huddersfield, that's probably the poorest team I've seen at Carrow Road this season. Just didn't have anything about them at all, and you can see why they're in for quite a struggle. And the 400 or so hardy band of travelling terriers were pretty clear that he's getting sacked in the morning. Darren Moore, who's a very likeable chap, but... get that out of the way, that mitigation. But still, very, from a Norwich perspective, confident, composed, controlled, easy, routine win in the final analysis. But zoom out a bit and what it means. One defeat now in 8, 3 home wins in 4, and the other one was the draw against Preston. That for me this isn't just sort of some relief from that 10-11 game spell where, it felt like every week by the end of that spell, David Wagner was having to bat away questions about his future. This feels, if dare I say it, more sustainable now, this sort of body of evidence. And today was a good performance as well. So to go with the sort of fighting spirit and the qualities that we saw at Portman Road Saturday before. So, look, that's 23 games in now to a 46-game season, halfway mark, 8th in the table, 2 points off it. All flippancy aside, it is game on, because if they continue on this sort of seam of results and the performances get better and more cohesive, then if you're 2 points off it, turning for home, then anything is possible. And who'd have said that when they sort of trooped away from here early part of November, having lost 3-1 to Blackburn? It is quite a remarkable turnaround. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's kind of emphasised by this statistic from NCFC numbers, 17 points from the last 8 matches for Norwich City. It's the highest total in an 8-game stretch under David Wagner, even better than that run at the start of the season. I mean, it's to keep it on the festive one. I don't know if you've ever seen Elf, but when they try and get Santa's sleigh to fly, and it's like you need Christmas spirit. Yeah. Feels like there's plenty of that at Norwich City at the moment.
Yeah, you could sort of see it after the game again. It almost sort of harked back to what we saw at the start of the season, that kind of unity, the waves. The atmosphere was very good again today as well. I know they had the drum back, and that seemed to help. Everyone feels more positive. It's a much better place to be going to watch your football rather than a couple of weeks back or a month or so back now at that Blackburn game, which it was empty seats everywhere. Sort of lots of apathy, frustration at sort of those in power at the football club, but also David Wagner. And it's a credit to David Wagner that the way he's handled himself throughout this whole situation has always been honest, fair, and to be fair, they're reaping the rewards from that now. And of course, the form has been great. Obviously the performances are a different matter, but at the end of the day, in the Championship, it's just about getting results. It's grinding them out. I mean, there's kind of, you go back to seeing like that Arsenal team that was that won the league. They said they only played well for about 10 or 15 games, and that they remained undefeated and won the title. Not that Norwich necessarily going to repeat that kind of thing, but you kind of get the sentiment there of the performances don't have to be great if the results are good. And I think now is kind of almost crunch time. They've got 5 or 6 really big games now coming up against sides in and around them, and if they can sort of maintain the results that they're getting at the moment, then anything is possible. Which as Paddy alluded to a few weeks back, that really felt like something that wasn't going to be possible. Yeah,
I mean, there was a point relatively recently where I think we were all looking over our shoulders a little bit and worrying about the other direction, and Huddersfield being one of those teams. The results that they've produced over this run, Paddy, irrespective, and we'll probably come on to speak about the style and the performances, just incredibly impressive. And as Adam says there, David Wagner, he's taken so much criticism. He's had to take so many punches. Like you say, he was asked consecutively for a good 2-month spell. We've been pretty critical of him on here, and probably rightly so for some time. But you can't argue with that body of work, what they've produced from the position they were in. I think if you'd have told any of us sat there as the clock ticked over to 80 minutes away at Cardiff that what would follow was this run, I think we'd have probably questioned your sanity. To be honest, it's been quite a turnaround, irrespective of maybe the stylistics of how they've done it.
It really is, and is that written about it recently. Is that an indictment? And it's not to downgrade anything that David Wagner and those players have done in this period, but it is an indictment of the Championship's strength in depth for me. That after that 10, 11 games, 1 win was it, cycle of decline, that they've now, off the back of 1 defeat in the next 8, turned it round to the point where they're, 2 points out of the playoffs. I think they're only 3 or 4 points away from West Brom, who they pertinently go to on Boxing Day. So that, for me, quite clearly underlines that, bar Leicester, bar Leeds, maybe Southampton, maybe not Ipswich, given the current struggles culminating in what unfolded at Ellen Road today. But there's a clutch of teams who are probably better than the rest, but then Norwich are in that bracket with the majority, and now it comes down to consistency, doesn't it? That's what will separate out the Norwiches, the Middlesbroughs, the Watfords, maybe even Hulls from the ones who will be in and around the top 6 from here to the end of the season, and the ones who might fall away and fall back a bit. And that, to take Adam's point, is why now everything that they've done to this point in this 8 games has built a platform, has built something that they can now look to attack. West Brom away, Southampton at home, Millwall obviously for different reasons, always a challenging game, but they've got Hull, they've got Leeds very early in the new year, teams who are going to be justifiably in and around it. If we could look into that crystal ball and see past that run of games, and if Norwich are still in the position they're in now, then that would tell me that they've actually been very competitive, picked up enough points, and then you are feeling that, okay, yeah, with a Sargent back, with a Grant Hanley, we saw today, the likes of Adam Eder, Hwang, Ben Gibson, all able to come in off the bench. I think we probably felt before a ball was kicked that, there was a group of players there who were good enough to be in the conversation for the top 6. Now, as I say, 23 games in, the halfway point reached after today. You're 2 points off it, so that feels that was a fair assessment, and hopefully, I think for me, the difference maker now is Sargent. If Sargent comes back in, they can integrate him, and we get him to carry on almost in the vein that he had started the season, that blistering goal a game almost ratio. Then anything is possible, because they're well in touch now with that block of maybe 4th downwards in terms of the table. And it is a testament to Wagner and his staying power and his almost pig-headedness to refuse to go quietly. I mean, I felt he was a goner after Sunderland. I couldn't see any way back from the abjectness of that performance that day. They were so passive and inhibited, and albeit they did get themselves in front, but the whole approach and the game plan and how he went that day to try and just set up and frustrate Sunderland, and it obviously didn't pay off. And they ended that game, they were a rabble, really. So you have to give him huge credit. Now, whether he is mid to longer term still Ben Knapper's man, that will all play out in due course. But in the here and now, nobody's going to be talking about his future, because he has managed with his coaching staff and those players to draw a line in the sand, starting with that Cardiff game, and then build on it, which for me is the encouraging aspect of this. It isn't that they stemmed the bleeding for a game or two, but then regressed back to what we'd seen in sort of September, October, November time. This actually does feel now, with the additions of Hanley and Sargent, to name but 2. Obviously, you need a little bit of luck now with injuries to key players moving forward, but I don't really see any reason why Norwich shouldn't now, between now and the end of the season, be firmly in and around that top 6, top 8. Trying to just edge their way, claw their way into the top 6 and stay there. And from where David Wagner found himself, by his own admission, his back was against the wall, and you only have really one choice. You have to come out fighting, or you raise the white flag. Well, he's come out fighting, and it's a credit to him on a personal level. And on a purely human level, great to see, because, as you rightly say, Connor, to deal with, he's been, even through this very, very difficult, challenging period, and we've seen casualties in terms of managerial sort of contemporaries fall by the wayside in this period. Tony Mowbray at Sunderland, Duff at Swansea, Alex Neil's gone now, and 1 or 2 others. And he could have been maybe fortunate to keep his position, given, those managers went for pretty similar types of decline in form. But no, he got the backing he needed from above. That was important, but he's also come out fighting himself, and let's hope that stands him in good stead, because there's going to be huge challenges to get into that top six over the second part of the season. But they only have to really, him and his coaching staff and players, go back to this period they've emerged from, and if they can deal with this adversity, then really they should be able to handle anything that's thrown at them over the second part of the season.
Agreed, and I think it's what you said there, really, because we're going to do probably the looking ahead aspect in the second part of the pod, but it's exactly what you say there. Irrespective now of kind of what they've done or what's happened, this kind of feels like this is it now. What they're entering, this is kind of what are Norwich City. Where are they going to be this season? And there's no excuses now. There's no players injured. We can see with our own eyes against teams that they need to be beating if they want to finish in the top six, whether they can and whether they have the performance levels to do that. And if they do and they finish in the top six, as you say, I think there's every possibility that they can do that, particularly in a division which -4 teams I think is quite weak, to be completely honest. They've got every chance of doing that, providing they can stay around. Now, of course, I'm sure you could, and I will construct the argument for balance at the table as it stands at the moment. Although I think when Norwich played, certainly when they played Cardiff were above them. But you look at the wins they have got: Cardiff, who are in 10th, Bristol City, who are in 12th. Obviously Huddersfield in 21st, QPR in 22nd, Sheffield Wednesday in 21st. So all of those teams that they have beaten at this moment in time sit beneath them in the table. But I don't think that was the case for Cardiff, maybe even Bristol City when that did occur. So worth mentioning that as well. Maybe that shows kind of the clutch of teams they're in at the moment. And for as much as we are talking about being 2 points off the top six and 2 points off West Brom, which they absolutely are, if you go in the other direction, and again, this just shows the bonkers nature of the Championship. They are, Preston in 13th for only 2 points off them as well. So that's a sign of just how quickly it can turn, and why this run coming up is so pivotal, particularly those games against West Brom and Hull on the horizon. And we'll get into much more of that in the second part of the pod. But Adam, I mean, we've referenced it. First half, I think Norwich City were frustrated. There's probably a lot of parallels with that goalless draw against Preston, which, God forbid we have to relive. And Kenny McLean, I spoke to him after the game, and he kind of summed it up quite nicely. It kind of felt like they were waiting for something to happen, something to drop, someone to grab it. And then, lo and behold, in the second half, Sam McCallum does. And when they got that first goal, it was all, as Paddy said, routine, comfortable against the Huddersfield side, which are bang in trouble.
Yeah, it's exactly how I kind of mapped it out yesterday on the preview show. I felt as if they got one, they'd get two or maybe even three. It's kind of... That's always been a natural struggle for Norwich, I think, in previous years as well, to be honest. Even in the successful periods, they've often struggled to break down teams that stick, 10 men behind the ball and look to try and, get a point at Carrow Road, and that's probably what Huddersfield's aim was today. You kind of felt like in the first half, the only real opportunity they had was Barnes' header, which was superbly clawed out by Maxwell. But as soon as they got that early goal, I think that just kind of gave them the freedom to then go and play football. Huddersfield had to come out a little bit, and that kind of allowed Norwich to exploit the spaces that were there for them. And the second half performance was a relatively positive one, and something to take forwards. I feel the likes of Sainz is now really starting to show what he's about, which is something I've struggled to see why he's not been in the team before this sort of run of recent games. I thought Hernandez was pretty average against today, but John Rowe as well in a different position. So you can sort of see now he's got lots of options, which is great moving forwards. And yeah, it was a must-win game today. It's one of them games. If Norwich are going to try and get themselves in the top six, they've got to beat those sort of teams in the lower bracket of the table, particularly at home as well, in front of the home crowd. And yeah, as we've already mentioned, it's now given them a platform to build off, and it is kind of now win or die really in the next sort of 5-6 games as to what the season's going to hold for them. But yeah, you can't not be positive at the moment, as particularly kind of going into the festive games, and the mood's really great and the fans are feeling better. And that's really key for sort of a unity point and something we haven't seen for a long time. Maybe fans have been offside with each other, the football club, the players maybe, and David Wagner. But now it feels like everyone's pulling back in the same direction, and that was kind of proof almost in the end of the game there with the scenes we saw in front of the Barclay again. And it's really good to see.
Yeah, it is, and it's much needed, as you say. I think we've said on countless pods that, football clubs who aren't together don't achieve anything. I think there's a direct correlation between teams being a little bit of a mess off the pitch and on it as well. And I think what we saw at Bristol City, at Ipswich as well, moments, but they're moments that create that. And Paddy, I mean, we've, again, during this run as well, spoken about perhaps some of those performances and results that maybe haven't aligned with each other. Ipswich, probably another example last week. You strip all of the emotions and layers out of it. Ipswich probably should have won that game. They probably should have drawn at Bristol City. They probably should have drawn against QPR. On a different day, they might not have won at Cardiff. This second half, for me, felt, today against Huddersfield, felt as well as they've played during this run. And I think, again, we kind of spoke, I think it might have even been last week, where we said two things will happen. Either the performances will catch up with them and the results will drop, or we'll start to see maybe these results breed a little bit of confidence. And actually, in some of their play in possession, the zip and sometimes it was 1-2 touch stuff, there seemed to be a little bit more confidence in them. Admittedly, and for context, against what I think at the moment is as bad as there is in the Championship. But they're the type of signs that suggest, as you said, building into a run, which I think we're basically going to find out what they are and where they're going to finish. They're the type of signs you want to see. It shows that there is progress being made.
Yeah, well, I would add the second half against Sheffield Wednesday, where I felt they were in control, and there's a pertinent parallel between that second half and today, which was a very early goal in the second half. That night it was Ashley Barnes. 2 or 3 minutes into the second half today, it was Sam McCallum with an excellent header, far better than I thought in real time, because he had work to do in terms of redirecting it back across Chris Maxwell. And funny enough, when I put that to David Wagner, and I believe that was his first goal in Norwich colours, but he said he's very good in the air. And you could see that. So, and thereafter, I think that fill-up of that early goal, I mean, you can imagine the psychological deflation at Huddersfield today and Sheffield Wednesday the other week, where their respective coaches have got into them, imparted 15 minutes worth of instructions. We're going to do this, that, the other. And then very, very soon after the start of the game again, you want behind or you want to drift again. And conversely, the fill-up that gave Norwich, because they really hit the accelerator then. Fashnak should score, shouldn't he, late on. Just before, I think it was, Borja Sainz, which again was a very cool, composed finish. And I'm struggling. I mean, there was one thing Angus Gunn had to do at his near post in the last 5 or 10 minutes. Snapshot, very secure handling. But that aside, I don't recall them fashioning anything. So, in terms of that control element, yes, and the performance, yes, that was very much. But I thought that was there in the first half. They just lacked that sort of punch, really. There was, as Adam said, there was the Ashley Barnes header.
What a save that was.
Was a good save, yeah. Well, I don't think I don't know whether it took a little bit of a touch off the defender, but I don't think it had quite the power but still a very athletic piece of keeping. But then there was a Marcelino Nunes shot from about 25 yards, which I think the keeper was beaten, and he just cleared his. But that was a pretty small sample for what I felt was a lot of control from Norwich. They did add that punch after the break, and yes, that was a far more impressive performance if you're just looking at performances between today and what we saw at Ipswich. And yeah, it just underlines what I think we feel. The signs have been there on this run. The flickers or the patches of play when you've got Kenny McLean now from a footballing perspective and a build-up perspective there at centre-back. That works. Him stepping in, that works. Nunes and Sarah, they seem to be getting better as a pair. They're understanding both what they need to do with the ball and without it as well, particularly Nunes, I thought, today. And then further forward, and obviously he was in more of a central role today, but, when you've got players like Rowe, like Sainz, Adam Eder I thought was good today in wide areas when he came on. That there's a threat level there now, and that they can trouble sides. And of course, for me, to repeat what I said earlier, now you drop Josh Sargent into that equation, in and around what looks some good structural elements and some growing confidence in terms of their performances. I think it's right to feel quite optimistic. And today against a very, very poor side was a result which matched the performance. It was controlled. It was within themselves. They could have put the accelerator down, added a few more goals. But it'll do. And they're the types of performances and results you need to churn out against the mid to lower ranked teams. And almost as a matter of course, if you have any aspirations really genuinely to be in and around that top six. But to repeat what we keep saying on this podcast already, that real upward mobility is only going to come if they can now go to the Hawthorns on Boxing Day and perform in that similar manner, hopefully come away with the result to match that performance, back it up at Millwall, and then, for me, really intriguingly, Southampton again at Carrow Road, because that was for me one of probably the better performances we saw in that early uplifting 8-9 game unbeaten spell at the start of the season, where they went toe to toe with a very good side who've proven to be a very good side now under Russell Martin, and didn't look second best for me. They looked the equal of Southampton that day. So it'll be really interesting if they get positive results in these next two, what we get on New Year's Day, because there's no doubt now this is the meat of this season now. It really is. If Norwich emerge from games against teams above them in good order, then, you know, with a fair wind in terms of injuries moving on from here, then yeah, I would be increasingly confident that they certainly will remain in the conversation for the top six. And then, you know, you just hope in those defining moments, those defining games down the stretch, that they've got enough about them to get themselves into the top six. And for me, from where I thought they would be at the start of the season, if they finish in the top six, that is a very good achievement, irrespective of what then happened in the playoffs. I think if you can get this group of players in the top six, then David Wagner has probably delivered.
Yeah, I would concur. You mentioned Marcelino Nunez there. I wanted to touch upon him, Adam, because it's been quite sort of quietly impressive, I would say, in that position. He's kind of struggled for consistency since he came to Norwich, and for me, as much as we're kind of and a lot of the tension, he's playing Kenny McLean as a centre back. That's really interesting. Nunez has kind of gone under the radar a little bit in terms of what he's offered Norwich in possession. Both of those kind of changes, pushing McLean back, introducing Nunez into the side, has given them a level of control and allowed them to secure possession a lot more. We're not seeing, as we were during that really bad run, those really kind of gaping holes and them losing the ball in key areas and then just being so open in transition and teams almost flooding forward with attacks. Now, that's partly because of how teams have recently come and set up at Carrow Road, and Huddersfield were pretty unimaginative, played a back five, and those wing backs were full backs, really. It was a back five, it wasn't really a back three. But it feels like he's made a difference from a midfield perspective. Now, again, so much of this conversation that we're having tonight is looking forward and saying, well, can this template, can him in there, in games where Norwich aren't going to have as much of the ball over a consistent period, is that going to work? Because at Ipswich, there were times where they looked a little bit open with that. But certainly in these type of games where they're facing low block teams at Carrow Road, it feels like they're kind of made for him. He really has kind of stepped it up in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think he's key from a creativity point of view from the midfield and sort of unlocking defences, as you kind of referenced there. You know, there's teams that are going to come here and try and gain a point, and he's pretty crucial. His passing ability is up there with some of the best in this team. Him and Zara have both got an eye for a ball over the top, and he can also shoot from distance, as we've seen on many occasions. It's often been kind of the physicality or maybe when to release the ball, and he's been caught on a few occasions and actually left Norwich a little bit exposed. But at the moment, I think from the build-up play and what they're trying to do, he fits it perfectly, and it's credit to him because, you know, we've seen it in flashes. You know, he's certainly a player with great technical ability, probably one of the better ones in the squad. You know, that strike he scored against Birmingham last year, you don't score that if you've not got something about you. But it has just been kind of that adapting to English culture maybe or English football. He's maybe struggled, and I think maybe now we're slowly starting to see him adapt to it a little bit more and looking more comfortable in this team, and maybe what's being asked of him is maybe being sort of put across better, whether that's sort of to do with the coaching staff they've brought in. Someone like Narcissus Pelash obviously can speak native language with him. Maybe that's helping him a little bit in kind of what he's trying to do. And yeah, it's a credit to him for what he's done as well, because, you know, he could have kind of, I suppose, folded a little bit under what's a lot of pressure. He's signed for money, and Norwich obviously haven't really got pockets of money now to go and buy players, but he's definitely stepped up and they look a lot better for it. My fear would be that maybe in these games that are coming up against more difficult opposition, would David Wagner go back to what he saw at the start of the season, someone like Ben Gibson coming back into defence and then maybe pushing Kenny McLean forward, and that maybe loses Nunez out of the squad. But I think that would be really harsh on him, because at the moment, yeah, he's probably been one of the star performers. I mean, that cross as well today for the goal of Sam McCallum was just, you know, absolutely pinpoint, and that's kind of what he brings to this side. And I think there's not many in the midfield perspective that can add that.
Absolutely. You mentioned Ben Gibson there. One thing, I don't want to moan too much because it's Christmas and, you know, we're all feeling very optimistic, but there were, and I think we all heard it, that there were boos when he came on today from Norwich fans. I mean, what are you doing? If you're booing one of your own players who's just come back from an injury, who's won a title at this football club, irrespective of maybe his recent form or how he's done, what on earth are you doing? Have a long, hard look at yourself. What a moronic thing to do, to boo any Norwich City player coming onto the pitch in a game that you're winning and winning pretty comfortably. I don't see what that achieves or what the reasoning is for it at all. He certainly doesn't warrant that more or less or at all, really. So yeah, I don't want to bring the tone down, but it was utterly bizarre. I've not heard anything like that at Carrow Road, and nor do I particularly want to hear it again. It was just nasty, really, and completely unnecessary. And again, maybe brought the smallest bit of gloss off what should be a really positive day for everyone involved at Norwich, and for him as well, returning from injury. So yeah, it's a shame that unfolded. Sam McCallum I wanted to mention, but Adam Eder as well, Paddy, because it felt like in a game that really needed a spark, he delivered that. I think you saw it for the second goal. He's probably unlucky in a sense that he's not been given an assist for his work in those efforts. I think that's going to go to Ashley Barnes, what was an interesting touch. But again, just kind of have the desire and willingness to stretch teams, and it does feel like that's kind of his element when they're. And I guess maybe that's partly what David Wagner was thinking today. A low block team looking to frustrate in games where there's space in behind and there's defences to stretch. Seems to be really in his element. And actually, I think what we've seen improve from Adam Eder is that general play, that aggression and willingness to run and battle with defenders. I don't think we saw this necessarily a few months ago. And whether that's just a run of games and confidence or what that is, but he brought a real thrust, I felt, to Norwich City's attacking efforts today.
He did. And, we've had this now, clearly, and he would reject wholeheartedly the super sub tag, but Wagner's reasoning around the Bristol episode was spot on. We saw it again today. The profile of striker he is, games as they get into the final stages against tiring defences where space open up, he's perfect for it. He really is. And obviously the goals that he scored tell you he's perfect inside the penalty area. But what was noticeable today was his real impact was in wide areas. It was outside the box. I mean, there was the cross for the goal, but prior to that, he burst down the left, whipped in a lovely ball, and it just evaded, I think it was Barnes and Sainz on the slide in the 6-yard box. And just that clear-headedness that there's nothing, with his back to goal and he's trying to, take a touch and maybe technically he exposes himself a little bit because I don't think he's as comfortable in that type of environment, but put the ball into space, let him run, let him commit defenders and have no other thought than just either get a ball across the box or take on a shot. And he's a potent, effective force at this level. His goals this season tell you that, but his impact off the bench more broadly tells you that. And yeah, he won't want that to be his remit moving forward, but you do fear that probably is where he is now, and the Wagner, mainly because Josh Sargent will come back in, and as soon as he's fit, he will be in that 11, no doubt about it. And I think it'll be either with Ashley Barnes or without Ashley Barnes. That's the intriguing element of this. I think Adam Eder is now probably cast in that role of impact sub, and there are probably few better than him in that role, I think, in the Championship, certainly. And David called him the best Championship sub earlier in the season after what he did at Bristol and following on from what he did at Cardiff. And it's hard to argue with that. But I'm just really intrigued how they go, because obviously the added element now, as opposed to the start of the season, in terms of that forward equation, is Borja Sainz. He wasn't available at the start of the season when it was Barnes and it was Sargent. Fashnacht was in there, wasn't he? And Onel was in there. But no, now Borja Sainz is in there. I'm not sure how David goes about accommodating them all. I think there will be players who will have to miss out now, and that's an intriguing element moving forward because you feel he's got the individual pieces of the jigsaw there. It's just how he puts them together now in that final third of the pitch, and that's going to be fascinating to see because you didn't feel at the start of the season he probably had those options to change it up to the degree he has now, but. There's absolutely no doubt, and it was underlined again by Adam Eder's impact, that if they need somebody to come in and affect the game in the final third now, he can do that job because he's now proven over the 23 games to this far in the Championship that he can affect games which are maybe meandering or in need of a spark or wrestling the initiative back towards Norwich. And, he's very much cast in that role. He probably doesn't want to be cast in that role, but I think for the rest of this season, barring, dare I say it, anything unforeseen for Sargent particularly, maybe Barnes to a lesser degree, I think that's probably where he's going to find himself. And it's a testament to him. I mean, you talked there, Connor, about he's maybe added elements to his game this season, but maybe there's a maturity as well, because I'm sure a younger version of him or just a younger player generally, that's very hard for them to get in their head, that because you want to start games, particularly when you're trying to forge your path and make your mark at this age of your career. You want to be playing regularly, like John Rowe has grabbed the opportunity this season. But it feels like maybe he's not happy about it, but he's accepted it. And when he does get an opportunity, he goes onto the pitch and he does what he did today, which was affect the game in a positive way. And it's interesting, it just popped into my head. If you remember, this is obviously the reverse fixture of the game where Sargent did the injury originally and in the act of scoring. But who came on that day? Adam Eder came on. And who was good that day? Adam Eder. I think he set up one of the goals with a burst down the right-hand side, very similar to today. And he actually scored that day, didn't he, as well, where he was put through, I think it was Yanulis, and very calmly finished as the keeper advanced. So maybe he just likes playing against Huddersfield.
Maybe he does. Weird statistic about him. Apparently he's never scored in front of the River End, which I was trying to think, but I don't think he has. So
he's had a few opportunities.
He has. So there's a target for the second half of the season. Just finally on the game, Adam, be remiss of us not to talk about Sam McCallum, because I think we did last week. I thought his first half at Ipswich was very, very shaky against Wes Burns, who has been excellent this season. Second half, I thought he was a lot better. Probably, and Kenny McLean said it, probably unfortunate not to start this game, but then to be thrown on in the second half. And it's a slightly different fullback to Dimi Yanulis, but there were points last season where that battle between both of them probably didn't look to be that close. And then probably this season it's maybe looked, Yanulis has looked a lot better than him. To get a goal, but also feels like he's in a really good run of form at this moment in time. And for as much as the attention has been on Dimi Yanulis' contractual situation, you've got a guy there who's out of contract in the summer as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's been at the club obviously quite a number of years now, and we've never really sort of seen him for a sustained period of games and maybe affecting things in a positive way. But these last couple of games, he's been excellent. Coming off the bench today in a game that Norwich was struggling to break down, obviously Huddersfield, he could have almost shied away, but to be in the penalty area in the right position to head them ahead, into the lead was crucial at the point he scored. And I think David Wagner summed it up quite well actually in his post-match sort of interview. He sort of spoke about maybe choosing Dimi Yanulis for the attacking threat that he offers and the way they try and build up, and maybe McCallum's not quite so strong in that area, but I think from a defensive point of view, McCallum's probably a slightly better defender. The pace he's got is, of course, crucial, and I think today actually he probably did show an attacking intent and sort of showed that quality that he does have. So yeah, for him it's huge, and obviously depending on the sort of situation now with Dimi's injury, it could potentially be an opportunity for him to have a really sustained run of games in the team, and if he can come and affect it positively, then it's then going to be more difficult then for Dimi to try and push himself back in again. So the opportunity is there for him now, and credit to him as well for taking it, because it could have been a difficult one for him. Maybe sort of clubs maybe looking at him in January. There's obviously been links away in last summer. I think Swansea were in for him and stuff. So that's all going to be in his head. But if he can continue to perform in the way that he is at the moment, then I think there'll be a lot of Norwich fans maybe looking at his contract situation, hoping that they maybe offer him a new deal, because he's still a relatively young player, and someone I think most Norwich fans will want to see do well. So yeah, we'll see what we get in the upcoming games. But if he can continue the sort of form we've seen in these last couple of games, then yeah, there's a player there who I think could perform in a very good Championship side, maybe pushing for the top 6.
Welcome back to the PinkUn.com Norwich City podcast, brought to you by Coleman's of Norwich. And I saw a fresh condiment in the shop this week from Coleman's, right? Apple sauce as well, which is that pork you have apple sauce with? Yeah, don't mind a bit of that. And I posed the question last week: do they do cranberry sauce? They absolutely do. So brilliant for this time of year. If you're doing you've left it a bit late now, so you might want to be getting a move on. But if you're still out doing the final bits of your festive food shop, you can get a bit of Coleman's cranberry sauce with turkey.
What's happened in the Southwell house, following on from Southwell house, following on from the debacle that is Christmas Eve dinner.
I'm glad you've used the word debacle, because tensions are high. There've been heated discussions this week, but unfortunately we are, as it stands, as of, what's the time that we're recording now, about 7:30 on Saturday the 23rd, the plan is that we're going to have a Christmas dinner tomorrow. And
you said if that was the scenario, that you would eat your own dinner as a solo protest on Christmas Day.
yeah, I would.
So what's happening? Are you going to deliver on that pledge?
I've not decided yet. I wouldn't commit to anything on camera like that, but I think I'll
Sleep on it.
I'll very angrily force it down on Christmas Eve and bemoan it as I'm stuffing it in. But I'm not happy about it. Let me tell you that. And the feedback, she wasn't happy that she got called out last week, my mum actually. But if you're going to commit fraudulent behaviour, I think it's only fair that you're called out for that. So there we go. That will do little to ease relations either, by the way. Adam, bit of cranberry sauce, turkey. Big fan? You strike me as a man who's a big fan.
Yeah, that's a staple, to be honest. That'll definitely be on the table on Christmas Day, because that's when Christmas dinner should be eaten, of course. So
I agree with you. You're preaching to be converted here. I agree.
So yeah, I think to be fair, any kind of sauce that goes with meat, mint sauce or with lamb, of course, or apple sauce with pork. Yeah, it tends to be Coleman's, of course, on the table. Didn't actually know Coleman's done cranberry sauce. I might have to venture out to the supermarket tomorrow and get some last bits. So might have to have a look and bring that to the table on Christmas Day. I'm sure it's very nice. I'm a big fan of cranberry sauce, particularly with anything related. Like, even if you get like the festive sandwiches, it goes well. So it's a perfect condiment. Now,
before we come, and we will come on and speak about Norwich City in a moment, and we'll do. I'll bring the heat segment in obviously sponsored by Coleman's. You mentioned shop. My dad came home very excited the other night. He'd been in. We can say it. He was in Aldi doing a bit of. Finest other establishments are available, etc. And he came home and he said, "You'll never guess who I've seen in Aldi, which is just across the road from where I live." I didn't really know who I was expecting him to say. I don't know, some train enthusiast maybe or something. And he said, "I saw Grant Hanley, and Grant Hanley was browsing dog food in Aldi." So I'm sure he made his way to the condiment section. But I mean, you've got a tale about. Well, you didn't actually see one, but this is kind of a second-hand Norwich City story about Norwich players in establishments.
Well, I don't know if I should really say, but a certain American striker who. I won't name the establishment because it's localised enough that he would then be inundated. But apparently his regular weekend routine with his family is a place I frequented the other night for a carol service, and my Sean Dyche accent gave me away. So I got talking to the chap who worked at that establishment, and a lot of Derby related chat as it was a Derby weekend. But then he did announce that the sergeants are frequent visitors. So maybe this is a new segment. Norwich players. Well, I think Adam's got a better one than me.
Well, let's throw this one in. Tell us about your Norwich City player sighting.
Yeah, well, this is not directly again through me. This is through someone I know. Stoke Mill Restaurant, which is a very fine dining experience in sort of South Norfolk, quite close to where I live. There's a couple of Norwich City centre backs that are apparently very regular visitors there on a Sunday for a Sunday roast, and I've been told their families are very nice as well. So there's a few, and I think an ex-sporting director as well. He likes a trip to a certain garden centre in the city centre, I've also been told. So yeah, there's a few I think probably maybe have the hot spots that they enjoy going to in Norfolk more generally, whether that be in a dining kind of environment or supermarket. So
we've missed Gabby Zara as well.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention this. Yeah, Gabby Zara in Primark.
Yeah, I saw that on X as it is now on this week. I think a couple of days ago. I don't know if
what section of Primark? Because you can get lost in there. I mean, that's floors.
I can only assume he was taking. I think he referenced after the derby, his family were coming down. So I wonder whether he was taking his family around.
Come see the sights of Norwich. Come see the Primark.
Come and have a look at Primark and the clothing on offer in that establishment, and maybe that's his cup of tea. I can imagine he's quite a fashionable man. Whether Primark's is his fashion choice, I don't know, to be honest. That's up to Gabby Sarah to say. But yeah, that's something I did see this week. I know he's also been to Cromer, hasn't he, surfing and stuff. So I think he certainly gets around Norfolk and Norwich more generally.
Yeah, we've gone off on a right tangent now, but we might as well finish. Christmas dinner, if you had to have it with one Norwich player, Paddy, who would you be around the table with?
Oh, you've really thrown that one at me. Let me have a think. I would go with Nacho Nunez, because he apparently doesn't speak a word of English, so I could just crack on and eat my dinner.
Adam?
Yeah. That's a tough question. That is. I think Angus Gunn. I feel like he'd be pretty safe hands for delivering your turkey.
He'd be a good carver, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd be a great carver. I think he
Look
could,
after you.
I feel like certainly for the washing up perspective as well. He's pretty good with his hands. So if that saves me a job, then that's usually a job for me. So that would be good if he can do that for me. So yeah, I'll go with Angus Gunn.
I'll go Kenny McLean. I think that'd be.
I don't think he'll come round yours on Christmas Eve night, mate.
What, Kenny McLean?
Christmas Eve night, no.
Why not?
Because it's Christmas Eve night.
Oh right. Okay, I agree with you. I thought you were going to say that he's got some personal issue with me. I was going to say no. But yeah, I just think he'd be good company, and I think he'd be good with the cracker jokes. I think the delivery on those would be quite good. Anyway, Paddy, who bought the heat for you today at Norwich City? I think my answer was actually going to be Adam Eder, which we've kind of touched upon. So okay. I'll give mine first because I thought Adam Eder really injected that impetus that Norwich City needed in the second half. What about you? Who bought it for you today?
Well, I'm going to go a bit left field, and it's Shane Duffy, because there was a moment at 2-0 late on. Not that they were really threatening to get back in the game, but he's absolutely launched himself, and I must confess I couldn't tell you who the Huddersfield player was, but inside his own box had to get the tackle correct, and everything was going into that. And to be fair, he did win the ball, and I'd imagine the Huddersfield player is still feeling the impact of that challenge now. So there was plenty of heat in that challenge from a certain Irishman.
Yes, had a good week, hasn't he, Shane Duffy?
No, we don't.
We'll leave it there. Leave it there, Adam.
I'm gonna go with Jack Stacey. I think he's actually kind of gone a little bit under the radar. His performances have certainly picked up a little bit from where they were maybe in a spell, sort of October, November time, where Callum Fisher maybe was getting some opportunities due to the fact his form had dipped. But I think certainly from a defensive point of view, and certainly from an attacking perspective as well, I think he's actually stepped up again, and maybe we're seeing like the Jack Stacey that we saw at the start of the season, which was being raved about as one of the best bits of business the club have done. Of course, it's a swap deal almost with Max Aarons going to Bournemouth for money, and Norwich picking Stacey up on a free. So I think if he can continue in that same vein of form, then certainly he'll maintain his place in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of danced around this run that Norwich City have got coming up, which I'm going to get on my phone while you're speaking, Paddy. But five of the current top six, to come in the next 6 games. In fact, I'll do it now. So of course it all starts at West Brom on Boxing Day. Then we head to Millwall next Friday. We won't know what day of the week it is by that point because it's in that weird lull on the 29th. Then Russell Martin brings his Southampton team to Carrow Road on New Year's Day. Then we pause for a bit of FA Cup third round action. Then it's Hull away, West Brom at home, Leeds away, before Paddy Davitt's Coventry come to Carrow Road. Resurgent Coventry, yeah, looking good under Mark Robbins. On the 3rd of February, and actually even February, you look at some of those games. Coventry, who, as we said, are going well. They've got Watford, they've got Cardiff, they've got Blackburn, they've got Sunderland and Middlesbrough at the beginning of March. This is a big run for Norwich City in their season.
Oh, it is indeed. Yeah, I mean, me and Adam had a separate chat with David after the game.
Oh, right, okay. I just thought you meant between yourselves.
No, we do that all the time, mate. Yeah, we do that all the time. But no, David Wagner, and ostensibly around obviously looking ahead to the West Brom game after today's game, and I signed off by asking him, that is now halfway point. We've touched on it already in this podcast, but 23 games in, do you have a platform now to essentially really attack the second half of the season? And I think he more or less agreed that they had a platform, but that he felt what he's seeing now is what he knew he already had in the dressing room, and we obviously saw it in that first 8 or 9 games of the season, that he had. We've touched on these individual players, but as a collective, they had enough about them to know there's some good sides in this division, but we're one of them, and we're going to show that we're one of them routinely, regularly, week in, week out, consistency. And they did that in the first part of the season. Now, you made the point earlier on, any excuses about injuries are off the table now, because once you get Hanley and once you get Sargent back particularly, that's as strong a group as you've got at your disposal. So if that is removed as any sort of factor in the equation moving forward into this very tough on paper run of games, then we'll learn now what this group are about and whether they have got enough about them to justifiably be talked about in terms of a top 6 or top 8 team, or whether they don't quite have enough and then they sort of lapse back into a kind of 8, 10, 12, 14 position in the table, which you know, it's difficult. It's difficult because we've seen both sides of it now in these 23 games to argue with any real conviction that no, they are now definitely a top 8 team or they are a mid-table side. And that run of teams you've shouted out there will collectively be probably the litmus test. You know, we will know, I think, certainly by the time Coventry come into view, sort of early Feb, what this season justifiably holds from there, and what this group is achievable under David Wagner's sort of direction of travel. So, you know, that hopefully is a challenge that they want to embrace. And as I said to him again in the West Brom chat we had, you know, they must be actually relishing going to the Hawthorns now on Boxing Day, because they're now going with this feeling of belief and confidence and momentum and optimism that wasn't there, you know, certainly prior to this 8-game swing. So go and attack these games now, go and express yourselves, go and prove to the rest of the division, maybe if what you believe is true, that you are justifiably in that bracket of teams who can compete for the playoffs. So, you know, I just hope that that's the mindset they approach it with. And you know, momentum is a powerful thing. And you know, it's certainly within their gift to go to the Hawthorns and get a result, in my mind, anyway. And then if you back that up against Millwall, what an occasion in store at Carrow Road against Southampton to ring in the new year. So, yeah, I think we all have to look at it now more positively, rather than maybe certainly prior to Ipswich kind of peeking through the hands and fearing what could unravel both at Portman Road and going into this Christmas period that looked very difficult on paper. But now it's quite exciting to feel that, you know, are things coming together to a degree where Norwich can really be talked about in terms of a playoff challenging team.
Yeah, it's rare to have a run as definitive as the one they're about to embark on, because usually these teams are kind of staggered as maybe they have been at points. Norwich actually had a clutch of them in that really bad run that they had. I mean, the 4 defeats on the spin were all to teams that maybe you'd expect to be in and around it, and some of them have been, some of them have maybe fallen away for slightly different reasons. So this is a real test, and like Paddy says, and we've kind of discussed the performance level maybe not being that high for a considerable period. Even maybe the first half today, as you referenced, I thought they had control against the poor side, but maybe just lacked that final little bit that would have made it a really good performance. The second half, they had a bit more of that. We need to see more of that. But the patchiness of the season, good run, bad run, good run, you now need to show a bit of consistency. Don't let it slip back into bad run again, because then, you know, as we said, I think that will be pretty definitive onto where they are. But that patchiness probably allows you to maybe shape whichever argument you want at the moment. You could shape, as Paddy has said there, you could shape that actually the real Norwich City are the one at the start of the season. What we're seeing now with some of the injured players coming back, you could argue the real Norwich City has been kind of some of the dross that we've had in the middle. And it is a run with no excuses, no injuries, that will show us what this Norwich City team is. And to quote Eminem, which I don't do very often, it will tell us kind of, you know, will the real Norwich City stand up? I mean, this is going to be the litmus test. This is going to be, and it's nice to be looking forward to that with positivity. But there's probably, certainly from where I'm sat now, I'm kind of, it's a tempered optimism of this has all been really good, but there's also this massive hurdle that you have to jump as well. And if you do that, maybe then I'll allow myself to feel a little, way more optimistic about what this season holds.
Yeah, I think it's quite exciting for Norwich fans now going into these games ahead. You know, there's hope. There's sort of that top 6. You can see it in the sort of rear view mirror where, yeah, you go back sort of over a month ago now, and we were looking sort of down the table, almost fearing the worst, and that's quite nice in the Championship. The nature of it tends to be the teams that hit their stride in the second half of the season that maybe pull themselves up into the playoffs and they can compete, and it's often the sides that actually have that momentum that get promoted. So second half of the season is absolutely crucial. What we can't afford to see is what's maybe followed David Wagner throughout his managerial career, and that is that sort of streaky runs of really good form and then really, really poor form. He almost needs to sort of arrest that, stop that, and just continue a really sort of positive upwards, you know, trajectory they're on at the moment. And if they can sort of maintain the form they've got at the moment moving forwards, then yeah, they are going to be in the conversation for the top 6. But these teams are going to obviously be challengers for them, and there's obviously players coming back as well that add competition to the squad, which hopefully will bring up the performance levels. Because if you've got players behind you that are knocking on the door saying, like, I want to start games, that tends to correlate that the players almost step up as well, where maybe you look at that spell around the October time, it was maybe individuals in positions that didn't really have anyone sort of pushing them to sort of push almost to that extra 110% rather than just 100%. So I think everything's positive. It's an opportunity now, which they didn't have a few weeks back, and that's quite exciting. I'm really looking forward to see the way they maybe go to West Brom and take that game, and the way they attack it, or whether they I don't think they'll be pragmatic like they were, or sort of defensive like they were maybe against Sunderland, where they just look to try and frustrate and get the point. Where I think, well, West Brom, they'll go there and try and get 3 points, which is great, and hopefully they do, because that will be enough to get them hopefully in and around the top 6 come the end of the final whistle on Boxing Day. And yeah, if you'd have said that to me over a month ago, I probably would have laughed and sort of questioned your sanity.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would be quite something. And it's nice to be sat here almost thinking, yeah, come on, bring it on, rather than, you know, as Paddy said, hiding behind that sofa and almost, you know, is it over yet kind of thing, which is what it was. I think, Paddy, it would be remiss of us not to mention Daniel Farker. He had quite a good day today. It was decent result for him, wasn't it?
Certainly was. Yeah, an excellent result. Yeah, and I haven't really had a chance to have a look at any of the post-match, but I'm hoping there's a nice sort of woven in line about Norwich City and Ipswich and Derby and his record in the Derby. That would be quite nice as well for his Norwich fan club. But yeah, I mean that was a troubling result if you've got anything to do with the blue half of East Anglia, because you can go. We said it a few times. You know, you can go there in a game like that and then lose by the odd goal, but really go toe to toe. But from what the bits I did see, which was most of the second half, they were pretty much second best, and that off the back of their frustrations, not to put Norwich in their place last weekend, and Leicester now to come to Portman Road. I don't know why we've gone down a Kings of Anglia rabbit hole here, but it feels like in the last segment we've talked about maybe this is a defining period for Norwich and their season and what the season could bring. I think Ipswich are probably in that category now, because you know, if Ipswich if they get turned over by Leicester, and you've now got Leeds and Southampton really putting their foot on the accelerator, then you know, that top 2, which might have felt it was a given, certainly not going to be the case as we turn into 2024. So, but they put it in my pointers today. You know, the dream scenario is that when they're back down here in April for the renewal of the derby, it's not just bragging rights at stake, but there's something tangible for both sides in terms of maybe that playoff shake-up.
Oh no! I can see it in the well. No, I'm looking beyond April. I'm looking to the playoffs again. I can't go through that again. That was traumatic, and it wouldn't be fun. Let's end then with we're speaking about Christmas. It's 2 days away now. Adam, are you prepared? Are you all wrapped?
I had a bit of a wrapping spree this morning, actually, because I've been putting it off for far too long. I usually get told my wrapping's not great. It's something I don't really enjoy doing, if I'm being totally honest.
If it's covered, you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather pay someone to do it, if I'm being honest, but nobody in my house will take that opportunity. There's a few things that may have been wrapped for me, but yeah, I had a little bit of a spree on Amazon as well, I think the Thursday, because I was like, yeah, actually it's getting a bit too close here for comfort. I really ought to get some things bought. So yeah, I had a little bit of a spell of buying. Although, to be fair, I've told people I'm cutting back a little bit this year because in the process of buying a house, so I'm trying to save a little bit more money. So for those reasons, yeah, downtoned it a little bit. But looking forward to Christmas and sort of catching up with some family and stuff. And of course, the food that comes with it is always great. So yeah, it is something to look forward to. And of course, then you've got the Boxing Day game on the corner and around the horizon as well. So it's you know, an exciting few days ahead, I suppose.
What have you asked the big man? And I don't mean the guy who came on for Huddersfield this afternoon.
It's actually too much sort of like domesticated stuff. I think like a coffee machine I'm hoping to get. Yeah, actually I've asked for a Norwich third shirt because I really like that purple shirt. That's something I can see myself wearing at, I don't know, wherever I go. So I've asked for that, and just generally otherwise just food and drink related beverages, yeah.
Paddy, what are you hoping for Christmas?
I'm pretty confident. Maybe you know, the old, which you boys might appreciate, the old heated gilet.
Ooh, yeah. I'm a big fan of a gilet.
Yeah, well, heated though. This is heated,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I've had some good reports about that. I think Gary Neville's raving about it. I don't know if he's got a company or something. I've seen bits and pieces on social media. That's the one, yeah. Which anybody who does what we do for a living this time of year. Although that said, it's been quite mild in recent days, hasn't it? But yeah, if it takes a turn for the worst in January and February, and we're in a press box somewhere,
You'll have steam coming off you.
well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned what sort of heat it puts out, but yeah,
Sweating.
yeah, but I've been told it's a pretty good product. So yeah, that'll be hopefully under the stock in either in the stocking or under my tree. So bring it on, Connor. What yourself?
Yeah, well, you mentioned a heated gilet. This is again unrelated, but I take your heated gilet and I raise you like heated gloves. I've seen that you can get them now as well, which would be good on the old hands. Heated socks, isn't it?
Gloves heat your fingers.
Well, you could say the same for gilets, really, couldn't you?
Well, I suppose that is true. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really useless actually because I don't really want anything. I keep telling people I quite like another dog, but I don't know what I could do with the hassle. So I don't know is the honest answer. Maybe some clothes.
Subscription to the PinkUn, maybe, Connor?
Yes, which we've got a special offer on, Paddy.
We certainly have. I mean, if you've left it as late as Harvey has left it, then really, I mean, it's 2 clicks of a link on our website. Just go to the PinkUn. There's a story.
You don't have to move.
No, and you will not. I categorically can state, without any fear of contradiction, get a better Norwich City present for £3, which is what it is now for 3 months. Of coverage through this defining spell. Come with us. We'll take you every step of the way, every press conference, home and away. Only media who will, I think I'm fair to say. So if it is take off, then jump on board with us because, who knows where the next 3 months might take Norwich City. Could go the other way, of course, if I was being a pessimist. But even if it does, we'll be with you every step of the way. So you can't lose.
I will endure it for you.
You can't lose. Yeah, heated gilet and all. So... but all joking aside, whether you go to the pin posts on our PinkUn social accounts or the buttons that are on the brand site now, the subscribe buttons, there's a story up there as well. There's a few other bits and pieces in terms of competitions as well off the back of having a subscription, but essentially £3 for 3 months. It's a no-brainer. If you haven't got your present for the Norwich fan in your life, that's what you need to do. Please.
Yes, absolutely, and. I think it's Paul Warne. I think it is Paul Warne, and the Derby manager, and he is obsessed with Christmas. I don't know if you've heard. I'm pretty sure he's used the line, "I am obsessed with Christmas," and he's quite that sort of character. So I'm going to try and be obsessed with Christmas from now until Boxing Day. I hope you gents both have a good one. I hope you all have a good one as well. Thank you for watching / listening. I'm not sure we'll do it. We probably won't do another podcast this side of the new year. So wishing you all a very happy new year as well. And we will rejoin you after Southampton where, as I said, it's either going to be more smiles or probably shorter fingernails. We will see. Have a very good Christmas. See you on the other side.